So we're moving towards now one of the famous bridges, Framwellgate Bridge. It's one of the three historic bridges, and I'm going to give you now your first shot just in a moment of the castle, and then we're going to talk about some kind of Norman history, if that's okay. So I'm just going to try and find a place that works for us. You can see now we're over the River Wear, and basically Durham, the city centre, the sort of peninsula, sits on, if you like, a bend in the river, and you'll kind of see this as we kind of go around. It kind of makes sense. But let me just sort of turn around so you can get your first view. Can you see that around the castle? So this castle stood here for nearly 1,000 years, and together with the cathedral, which is just over here, they jointly form the UNESCO World Heritage Site. We're going to go up there and obviously have a closer look. But I just wanted to give you a bit of the background, really. It's commissioned, this castle, in 1072 by William the Conqueror. So it's got a powerful symbol, of the early kind of conquest. And William had found it very, very hard to take the northern England. It took him long enough to take York, even more so to take this, because these were under kind of Viking and Norse control. And of course, relatively short trips across the sea, they can get reinforcements. So it's very, very hard to hold these northern places. So castles were very, very important, sort of strategic ways of doing that. And of course, you also have the threat of the Scots here. So when you look at the kind of the height of the castle above the ground, you can see why this spot was chosen. It's about 100 feet above the river. So if I'm just going to pan us down here, you'll see the river is quite a long way sort of below. So this kind of peninsula sort of perches up above, and it makes it, of course, then, a relatively easy proposition to defend. So it's not difficult to understand why that kind of site was chosen. But I'd say it was as much about the exerting the rule over Northumbria, which was very sort of independent. But as I say, the Scots were a kind of constant threat. And the seat became the home of the Prince Bishops, which we can talk about in a moment. So the Prince Bishops basically is a combination of both ecclesiastical and temporal rule, or spiritual and temporal rule. In other words, earthly powers and spiritual powers. And the reason what it was up here, William appointed one of his own men as Earl of Northumbria. And obviously there was then a bishop. And so how did the Prince Bishop get his title? Well, the Earl of Northumbria got himself involved in an act of treachery, and he was executed in 1075 by William the Conqueror. And so he then sold the title of the Earl of Northumbria to the bishop. So William Watcher was his name, and so he became the first Prince Bishop, which meant he held simultaneously the title of the Earl of Northumbria, but also the Bishop of Durham. So it's a combination of those kind of two elements together made it, in effect, an incredibly powerful role. And this role exists until the 1830s, the Prince Bishop. And in effect, they were like sort of minor kings, really. They could issue coin, they controlled armies. It is music industry, there's an awful lot of buskers around here.